Today, we're looking at an orange ink by Callifolio Itzamna. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below, but if you've got the time, I would appreciate you checking out the entire video. If you'd like, you can follow me over on Instagram as an ink guy. Also, if you're new here, I do fountain pen ink reviews daily, so I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Nimicine Fission with a broad nib. I used it to write for a day and then to take the notes for this video. In order to have some standardization while looking at writing samples, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper, although there are additional writing samples that occur much later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen. It does have some very nice shading going on. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, fantastic shading, 7 seconds to dry. Medium is a little bit darker than the extra fine, just a hair lighter than the stub. With no feather spread, halo sheen, it does offer some shading. It's not as standout as on the extra fine. 11 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do show us good color variation, and we do get it. Tomoe River. No bleeding. No ghosting. No ghosting, minor ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It offers some shading. Excuse me. Because if you look at the Itzamna, it starts darker and works its way lighter. So there is some shading going on in the stub. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 12 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub. With no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 19 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we really didn't get it. And Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen. It does have some nice shading that's happening. The extra fine is a tad lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, very, very nice shading going on here. This is fantastic. 8 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, just a tad darker than the stub even. With no feather spread, halo sheen, and it still has some shading, some very gentle shading, ombre type shading, with 13 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both do show us some color variation left to right, and we do get it in the writing. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we can see here why this shades so well. It's got this peachy tone at the bottom that is forming a line very immediately into the filter paper. Now it pushes its way up. We get this orange and a very bright yellow across the top. Now the one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water, and that peachy tone really seeping into this filter paper with only 10 minutes. Makes you feel like that's going to be the hang-around color. It does still push up. Not all of that peachy tone stays in place. We then get that orange, about the same representation, and still with that yellow at the top. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it handled itself very well. I feel safe using this in a note-taking situation if I want to highlight. Now, water is lifting some of the ink, not all of the ink. A lot of that peachy tone from the chromatography, still there. Water, I needed a little bit more than that to get it out of my pen. Pen flush, you see, is starting to break up that peachy tone just a little bit. We start to see the white of the paper beginning to emerge through here. Now, I had to use pen flush to get this out of my pen, but that was it. And I think that might be the only time on a Callifolio that I had to do that. The 1/3 bleach solution is completely removing it from the paper, but there's no need to use that to get it out of your pen. I test ink viscosity or flow by using a tilt test, and I've linked that video and put that in here for you. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Callifolio Itzamna has a viscosity of 2.31, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Callifolio Itzamna has an average dry time of 12 seconds, making it a little bit faster drying ink. Instead of finding inks that look like Callifolio Itzamna, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went for a nice turquoise and chose Robert Oster's Turquoise. The second writing sample is done on P. Berger, Levenger, and Strathmore writing paper. Here we're looking at P. Berger. It's a French rules student grade paper. We get a lot of bleeding that's going on, a lot of show through. It does not touch the page underneath, but you do not get to use the back of the page. Not nicely anyway. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. Extra fine is a little lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. 2 seconds to dry. Medium, darker than the extra fine, darker than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 5 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show no color variation, and we really didn't get it. Back to some nicer papers with Levenger, with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 had no feather spread, halo sheen, some very nice shading. The extra fine is just a little lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. Plenty of shading, very nice shading, 4 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, almost no shading at all. There's a couple of lighter spots, but that's about it. 7 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both, the extra fine shows plenty of color variation, the medium shows almost none, and that's really what we got in the writing. And last up, Strathmore writing paper, with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 had no feather spread, halo sheen, some nice shading. The extra fine is a little lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, again some very nice shading. 3 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and there is some shading spots. There's more than we saw on Levenger just before. But like when you look at quick, it starts dark, gets light, and gets very dark again. Okay, jumps goes from dark to light to dark, so it's more that we get some lighter letters. 7 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine shows some decent color variation. The medium shows none, although we get spots of lighter letters in the medium and good color variation in the extra fine, and that is all that I have for the writing sample. So what do I think of Callifolio Itzamna? This ink changes the writing experience from the pen. I like my pens to have a little bit of feedback. This actually made the pen feel a little bit smoother on most of the papers that I wrote on. It has the added benefit of having a pleasant tone and some decent shading too, you know, that stuff. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? A very wet pen is going to give you an amazing orange to look at, but with no shading. But a medium flow, medium to broad pen is going to give you an amazing tone and shading. The choice is obvious. I'm going to remind you that I'm here every day with a new ink review. Thanks for watching.